tropical storm, but potentially a typhoon before impacting northeastern Luzon or even edging towards the north, impacting Taiwan. So in this update, I'm going to break down the current state of the storm system, where it is organizing out here just towards the west of Guam, but also where it's going to be headed, and not only that, but why. But first and foremost, I want to remind you, I appreciate you watching these updates, but make sure you get from official, accurate sources. If you're in the Philippines, do check Pagasa with their official tracks as well, staying up to date on your local warnings in your. Currently, though, on satellite imagery, we are continuing to see that convection flare up around a kind of exposed low-level center. But as this edges towards the west, I do expect this to kind of tighten up just a bit. We have plenty of convection off here towards the west and towards the east. So once that does build into the middle of this storm system and it gets cut off of that dry air that's filtering into it, that is going to allow it to intensify. And you can see the broader picture. We have a subtropical ridge right in here, have a trough edging off just like this. And the reason why there is that chance of this turning just a little bit towards the north is because of that trough right there. But I think for the most part, that ridge is going to keep this on that westward track, which is why I do anticipate this at least just clipping parts of Cagayan, or maybe even coming on shore around parts of Isabela. Look at the cone of air. Definitely there is a range here. I think more of an easterly track, highly uncertain. Really, the threshold is going to be more so towards the Batanes Islands, across Cagayan into Isabela, or maybe even down towards the south across parts of Aurora. But even if it doesn't take place, do want to note the wind field. This outer ring by the Joint Typhoon Warning Center, that's this graphic right here, indicates the extent of 34 to 35 knot winds. That's enough to knock down some trees and things like that. So definitely there is a big range here. Now, if you take a look at some of the guidance, for example, here is the ECMWF showing you the predominantly the model consensus is a little bit further towards the south than an official track, while the GFS, which I'm going to show another comparison with our graphics from Metro Weather coming up in just a minute, is edging that storm system a little bit further towards the north. In general, if you take a look at JMA, KMA, and the Taiwan Bureau of Meteorology, they all do indicate kind of this edging off towards the north and west, making landfall around parts of Cagayan. Now, one thing I've noticed over the past about 2 to 3 years is that these storm systems tend to edge south of where that track is. It's something that I have seen time and time again. They very rarely churn north of where the track is when they're on these westerly projections from the here in the Philippine Sea and from the official agencies. So I would not let your guard down by any means if you are in Cagayan over towards Isabela. But things you need to know about this area right now, likely going to be, and it may very all be already be named by the time we're watching this. JMA has upgraded already to a tropical depression. JMA is expecting this to become a tropical storm. It will be called Trami over the next day or so. If you speak Tagalog, by the way, a nice translation here for you, for our friends out here in the Philippines. So try to reach out to as many people as possible. The tropical cyclone is expected to move towards northwest, possibly impacting Luzon per the latest forecast. This will be named Kristine once it enters that Philippine area of responsibility. For the arrival of this storm, make sure you know that official information from us out here. Prepare to evacuate if you do need to, and prepare your emergency to go get. Now I'm going to go over here and we're going to talk a little bit more details on this storm system and kind of where it's headed at this time based on a few of our guidances here. Now going back to that satellite picture, in a broader view, you can kind of see where it is right now compared to where the Philippines is. And even back here, there's Guam. Here's our storm system continuing to wrap up here over warm sea surface temperatures well above. That's definitely a lot of energy out here, allowing this to intensify. We're going to take a look first at the ECMWF. This is a European model, giving you an idea of the guidance here. Pressure showing, and really see these white lines, the closer those are together, the higher the wind field is. Of course, you can look at our wind barbs as well here on these fantastic graphics from Metro Weather. Pushing off here towards the west, Already on Wednesday, conditions are going to go downhill, not only from the storm itself, but also those winds coming in from the north interacting with a cold surge well towards the north. So see those lines of closer pressure really already building in across northern areas of Luzon as that wind continues to pick up. And then we can see this tracking along here. By Wednesday night into Thursday morning, we start to really see the weather go downhill per this guidance here across parts of Cagayan, Isabela, Aurora, really most of Region 2 for that matter, and across Region 1. You would be under signal force warnings, likely 1 or 2 in this particular scenario, and really just be inside and be hunkered down. Now, if you notice, though, with this more northerly track, Manila misses out on the worst, pardon me, Manila misses out on the worst of the weather. Manila would not be seeing kind of typhoon conditions by any means out here across the NCR. This would strictly be a northern Luzon, Cagayan Valley, Sierra Madre Mountains type of impact, with type also looking at some catastrophic rains in this scenario. Now, let's take a look at our weather map per the global forecasting system. That's this one right here with the GFS showing your time frames, and I'm just going to show you the wind field. So we're just looking at that low level center with this taking even a slightly more southerly track. Of course, the cold surge out ahead of this, increasing winds on Wednesday, but this pulls this storm on shore by Wednesday night heading into Thursday morning and making landfall instead of edging towards the north across the Cagayan area here, maybe just towards the south of Santa Ana, around the Sierra Madre Mountains. Now, of course, the mountains typically rip these storms apart, but this still would be definitely dangerous conditions for our friends into Apari, extending across the Cagayan Valley. Cagayan River would be looking at heavy rainfall, but once again, staying north of Pangasinan, all the way down towards Manila and the NCR. So predominantly, I would say from Ilagan here, basically, the Maga Dam, let's use that as a threshold for some of the worst weather extending towards the north. Now, of course, if this even edges further north, drastically change. Now, in the GFS scenario, though, it never really gets picked up by this trough. So this means parts of Region 1 extending along the west coast, including our friends in Baguio in the higher elevations, you would be looking at some typhoon-type conditions as this edges further towards the west, too. So there's a couple different scenarios that could take place with this storm system. As it continues to develop, we're going to watch that official track if it does sway even the slightest. But even if it passes towards the north here, you can see by Wednesday night heading into Thursday, we're already seeing those rains, and we could be looking at typhoon conditions in northern areas of Luzon, or at least tropical storm strength winds. Not maybe super typhoon by any means, but still plenty of impacts to be had with this storm system. So just comparing up the different models there, the consensus, and look at the rainfall. Not only near the center, where of course flooding rains will be happening, but look down towards Palawan and Visayas and even over towards Cebu. You might be thinking you're looking at the center line of the forecast. You're saying, good, I'm in the clear, sunshine and flowers, but that's not the case. Down towards the south, we actually have that inflow band and almost an enhanced habagat kind of setup, where you're going to have several days of continued rainfall and the potential for flooding across some of your areas towards the south. So if you're in Mindanao or western Visayas, you could be looking at some heavy rains adding to 2 to 3, maybe in 4 millimeters of total precipitation in those specific areas. So heavy rain down here with those inflow bands, of course, heavy rain right in here with that chance of winds up to 100 to 120 kilometers per hour across northern Luzon into the Batanes Islands. That could even be higher if our storms strengthen. And then eventually, it could either edge towards the west or get picked up by this trough and turn towards the north. I was a betting man, and not just being skeptical on the different types of scenarios here. I would say this is more than likely going to edge further towards the west. That's not an official forecast. It's just my analysis based on the data I'm seeing right now, which could change the next 12 to 24 hours. But of course, I'm always trying to give you the early prediction, as I've been doing for the last few days, when storm was probably going to be developing well ahead of a lot of the agencies out here. So I have the luxury of doing that, though. I know what it's like to work for official agencies. You really have a lot of pressure on you as far as when you get those warnings out. But I'm just trying to share the information I have at this time with you guys here. I appreciate you watching. I appreciate you looking out, and I appreciate you staying informed ahead of this storm system. If you are out here, though, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, as this graphic shows for our friends in Baguio, yeah, those will probably be the worst of the weather here. northern Luzon. Big thanks for everybody on Patreon who supports this channel as well, by the way. I want to give a shout out to everybody here, including who just upgraded to a Super Typhoon status. That's 10. Thank you so much for everybody who does help out. I can't stress enough how thankful I am. I am humbled and just the support you all give us here. So from anywhere you are, from Mindanao to Luzon to Okinawa to Taiwan to Japan. Okinawa is part of Japan, I know. But thank you so much. Even Guam and Saipan, I try to give you time with these updates. Watching.